Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I can see that people are still logging on, so let's just give it a minute before jumping in. All right, so before we get started, I wanted to first just cover off a couple of housekeeping items. This webinar will run for 60 minutes total. We'll present for 45 minutes, and we'll have 15 minutes at the end for your pre-submitted questions. So thanks very much for sending those in. We had some great ones. Due to the size of the registration for the class, your mics will remain mute throughout, but we will cover off as many of those pre-submitted questions as possible at the end. And also, after the webinar concludes, we will be sending out a robust follow-up email. So that's going to include a recap of the topics we covered today, so repeating events and online event resources, just in case we don't cover your question, a recording of today's session, plus there's also going to be a survey for feedback. So if you do have a couple of minutes spare, it's a short survey, please do fill that out, as we do want to make sure that we continue to provide you with valuable content. So we really do welcome feedback. You can expect to receive that email sometime in the next day or so. All right, let's get started. So first of all, to introduce myself, my name is Sandra. I joined Eventbrite just over 4 years ago, and my role here is a product training manager. I also did want to mention that given the shelter in place orders, I am currently working from home, as is the whole Eventbrite team. So please do bear with me if I do run into any technical issues or uncooperative internet along the way. So let's jump into today's content. First, let's talk about the agenda for today's webinar. So we're going to cover a lot of ground, including when and when not to use Eventbrite repeating events, alternative methods to create a repeating event experience, and also that will include the basic settings used to set up a repeating event, features that are not available with repeating events, workarounds for certain limitations with repeating events creation experience. I'm also then going to run through setting up an online event, a few pro tips and best practices, and then we're going to jump into a live demo so we can actually see what that looks like in practice. And finally, as I mentioned, we will cover off then at the end as many of the pre-submitted questions as we can. So Eventbrite created the repeating events tool so that event creators that might have the same event over and over can set up a page for attendees that they can choose from multiple occurrences to register. So this setup not only makes finding the right event on the right date easy for your attendees, but it's also a valuable time-saving tool for creators. So when you hold the same event over and over, you don't have to create an event registration page each time you have an occurrence. You can start by adding the date and time for the first event, then add another occurrence and another and another, and so on until you have all your complete event schedule set up for your repeating event. Just to note that you can set up to 365 occurrences of a repeating event on the one event page. So it's basically creating a rubber stamp of the same event over and over again. And it also creates a chooser so that your attendees can choose which occurrence that they'd like to attend. So it's got a really easy setup calendar here. So you can see, which we'll be looking at in the live demo more, when you're actually setting it up on your end, as you add occurrences, you'll be able to see them on the calendar clearly. And if you do have to make any amendments, like for example, if you needed to cancel one of the dates or delete one of them or add in more, you can clearly see it on the map form here. Again, like I said, we'll be looking at this a little bit later on in the demo in detail when we look at how that actually looks when you're setting up whatever kind of occurrence you have. So repeating events on Eventbrite have all these characteristics in common. The same tickets are offered for each and every occurrence of the event. So there's not a way to say certain ticket types happen on Friday, but not on Saturday or Sunday. And you can't remove tickets from any occurrence. So for example, if you had less tickets on the Saturday than the rest of the occurrences, there isn't a way to just have a lower number on that specific day. When you create your ticket pricing and quantity, it needs to be the same for each occurrence. So again, we'll be looking at that a little bit later on when we're looking at the ticket setup. There isn't a way to offer, we'll say 10 tickets for one date and 50 for another. And finally, the location and event details are always the same. So you have the same talent, the same presenters, the same material, and the same place if it's a venue each time. Or if you're doing an online event, which we'll talk a little bit later on in more detail, it'll be the same link unless you go in weekly and you change out the link. So we'll talk about that bit for online events a little bit later on in more detail. Now, having said that, there are a few workarounds if you do need to tweak one or two instances that we'll go over later on, but it's best to use this sparingly. So if you're finding that you're doing a ton of customization, it's best to create a different event page and tie them together with your organizer profile. So again, we'll go over this as well in the demo. And aside from the need to keep all your events consistent and the same, there's a few features also that you may that you might currently use that currently do not integrate with our repeating events tool. So let's just cover off a few of those now. So the first one is reserved seating. So that's not currently available on repeating events. The second one is tickets go live for purchase on a scheduled basis. So you can set them to go off sale, but any ticket created on event is live and available on the published event, and you can't set up conditional availability based on other ticket sales. The next one is if you do use the group or team registrations feature often, it's mostly used in endurance type events, for example. It's not generally needed and something that's asked for when someone's having a repeating event. So currently it doesn't, that option's not available when you're using repeating events. And each occurrence in your repeating event cannot last longer than 24 hours. So if you have a recurring weekend long event, for example, you need to create a new event page per instance. So there are a few things to bear in mind. And just one last one as well is if you are having an online repeating event, then you may know that we do have a Zoom integration. That Zoom integration is not available when using repeating events. Having said that, you can still add a Zoom link in a different way. So again, I'll cover that a little bit later on in the live demo. So after considering your event registration needs, if you find that the repeating event tool is a good fit, you're going to love what you're going to see next. So let's take a look. So let's start with the basics you need to get a repeating event started on Eventbrite. The first part of the process is some basic information, including your event title, location, and at what point you set the event date. So that section there where you normally, if it's a single event, you set the date and time. This is where you'll see the option to have a recurring event. So we'll be walking through that in the demo in a few minutes. And once you are in a repeating event mode, you can now begin to build your schedule. So you're going to see an extra option on your left-hand side menu for building out that schedule. So you have several options when adding dates depending on your needs. So you can have individual occurrences. So there might be a few dates that you want to add, but there's no consistent pattern to them. They're just sporadically here and there. You can have multiple events that follow a pattern of daily, weekly, or monthly. And after you've added events that fall into a pattern, you can remove individual occurrences or rescheduling If they have to be rescheduled, you can do that, and we'll also see that in the demo. You can also add in just another individual occurrence, we'll say, if you have an extra date that doesn't fall into that pattern. And like I said earlier, there are a few tips that work to get around the pricing and quantity limitations. So we're going to look at these now. So these, just to emphasize again, these really are for one-off situations. If you do have an event running 365 days a year and you need Friday to be a little bit different, then these workarounds will not work, and you are better off creating individual events. So if you have a one-off situation and you just have to make it happen, let's say, for example, one of your events has one occurrence that only half the tickets can be sold, you can manually add an order, and that will remove the tickets from inventory. So we're going to look at that when we're looking at the demo in a second, how to do that. The next instance is, for example, you might need a cheaper ticket price for a matinee. So how you can get around this is you can add a matinee public discount code to the matinee occurrence only. So it's only going to show for that. And then for all the other events, it's not going to appear for that at all. And then the last thing is, if you need to have a ticket on just one of your 4 events, you can add it as a ticket. And then what you can do is you can sell it out on all other occurrences with the manual order, much like the first point there we said about making one occurrence and you want to sell only half the tickets. So again, I'm going to go through that in detail. You can see it in practice a little bit later on when I'm doing the demo. All right, so now I'll talk you through how to set up an online event on Eventbrite. And again, we'll look at this in the live demo shortly. So there's 3 main steps to setting up an online event. Setting your location to online event. So you'll find that in your basic info tab in the location section. The second part is creating your tickets. So you'll create tickets like you would for any other type of event. And the last one is setting up your online event page. So much like when we choose to have a recurring event and we see that extra schedule option on the left-hand side menu, when you select an online event, you'll see another extra option for the online event page. So what this is it lets attendees know how and where to join your event if it's an online event. And you can think of this as like a virtual venue, for example. They'll have everything they need on that page. And then just moving on from that, we get asked a lot now that we've moved since COVID more to more online events, which is the best video hosting platform. So as a reminder, Eventbrite will do the ticketing side of it, but the actual hosting of your webinar will be done through another platform. So in answer to those questions, we've just set up this little slide here. So the platform that will best meet your needs does depend on a variety of factors. So things like event capacity, budget, level of interactivity desired, and whether or not you want attendees to pay to access your content on that hosting platform. So the logos on this slide represent some of our most popular video hosting platforms currently used by event creators on Eventbrite. And they do vary in many ways. So we've broken out some key features and identified whether or not each platform offers them. So you'll see here that options like Zoom and Vimeo can be more expensive as they do offer advanced features. So at a high level, they both have excellent interactivity capabilities, such as they have a questions and answers feature, they have polls, and they also both allow you to capture attendee data. Also, one thing to mention is they both do have customization available as well, and they do allow you to accept payments. Other platforms then, like Facebook Live, YouTube, and even Twitch, these are free to use, very easy to set up, but you're not able to capture your attendee data and engage with them before or after your live stream or webinar. Additionally, with these ones, there's no way to currently accept payments. So to be clear, you won't actually be hosting the video portion of your online event from Eventbrite. Eventbrite's simply how you sell your tickets and gate access to the webinar or live stream. So as you can see here, and I've mentioned, we do integrate with global streaming platforms like Zoom, Vimeo, YouTube, and many more. Okay, so now that we've chatted through how repeating events work and online events are set up, let's walk through how easily it is to set these up and what it actually looks like. So I'm going to pop in here to an event. So starting on the basic information page, it'll be the same, primarily a lot of the things as you would set up any type of event. So you'll add your event title, your organizer profile, your categories for searching. If you wish to add additional tags, that will improve your discoverability. That's all the same as it would be with an in-person event. So the location next is the first one to take note of. That's a little bit different. So if you are hosting an online event, or even if you have an in-person event and you're switching it to online, you'll need to go to the location section and select online event. I'll just click on save. And then if you're hosting weekly events, you'll have to choose recurring events here. Now I have created tickets before I did that, so I'm just going to delete those out. So that's one thing to note, that if you have, while you can change to an in-person, to an online event from an in-person event, you won't be able to change to a recurring event if you have tickets created already. So if there's no registrants, you can just go ahead and do what I did there, delete off your tickets. But if you have registrants, then you may want to, and you want a recurring event, you may need to build out a new event page. So I have online events selected, and I'm just going to select recurring events here. And I'm going to hit the save button. So you'll notice there on the left-hand side menu, once I chose online event and saved, I have this new online event page option on the left-hand side menu. And once I selected recurring events, I have this new schedule option on the left-hand side menu. So let's start off with our schedule. So like in the slides, you have a little calendar view here. So you can view it by month, week, or day. For example, if you're setting up time slots, I personally find either the week or the day view easier when I'm adding the schedule. Or if it's monthly, you can go on month. And you can simply just click on add dates at the top. You'll put in the start date. So this is the date of your first occurrence, and the start time and end. So if it's just like this, 3 hours long, you can add that in. If it's like hour increments, you can just add those timings in there. And then you can add when it's going to occur. So if it's a weekly event or a daily event or a monthly event, you can add those in. Or like I said, if it's kind of sporadic and there's no pattern to it, you can just add each one in by choosing the ones. So for the purpose of this, I'm going to select daily event. And then I can decide whether I wanted to end on a specific date, which I'm going to choose here, or after a certain amount of events. Again, just to note that there is a limit to 365 occurrences. So I'm just going to go ahead and save that now. And you'll see it's added all that. So in the case of time slots, if you have a weekly or daily time slotted one, you'll just go ahead and add in each time slot in the same way. So then we'll say if you wanted to add, if you said, okay, on this Sunday, I want to add in an extra one that only occurs on this Sunday, I can do that, and I'll choose the once, and then I'll hit save. And then it will come up in a second. I'll just refresh the page a bit. Oh, I have at the same time, that's why. So if I have like an early one, we'll say here, so 4:30 to 7:30, and click on once. You'll see there it's added in just for that date. So again, if you have any extra dates you want to add, you can add them in at any time. Or if you want to just add in more weekly schedules or more time slots, for example, you can add them in at any time. If you do need to change any of them, so let's say this one here, if I wanted to change it, I can just hit on it and click on reschedule. And then I'll just select a different date. If you're changing the time as well, you can change on a different time. And you can also have it apply to multiple occurrences. So once I hit multiple occurrences, you'll see I have other options here where I can have a custom range, or I can again just go this occurrence and following ones. And then I can go ahead and click on reschedule, and it will reschedule those there for me. Just a note that if you do have registrants on those dates that you are rescheduling, it will update their tickets if they go into their ticket section of their Eventbrite account, but it won't automatically notify them. So before you reschedule, you will want to think about going into that occurrence, which I'll show you how to go into individual occurrences in a moment. And you will want to email them just to let them know that it is being rescheduled and they're aware of the change and they don't just discover it when they look at their ticket. The same goes if you are cancelling any of them. So if I click on this, I can delete it if there's no registrants, or I can cancel it if there is registrants. Again, if there are registrants, do make sure that you do notify them before you go ahead and cancel that, just so they're aware that it is no longer taking place. So once you have your schedule set up, you can go in at any time, like I said, add more dates, reschedule, take them off. And once that is set up, then you can go ahead and just fill in your details like you would with any other event, and also set up your tickets. At this point, I'm just going to go through our online event page setup next. So if we just pop in there, when you have an online event, this is where you're going to set up that virtual venue that I mentioned. So you'll notice there, as I previously mentioned, we do have a Zoom integration when you have a single event, which will appear here. But when you're having recurring events, that option is not available. Having said that, if you do want to add a Zoom link or any other platform that's not listed here, for example, you can just click on your webinar. You pop in your image again for the landing page, your title, and then just drop in your Zoom link there, or whatever platform like you're using. Again, it's good to just add if there's any instructions, if this is optional, or if you want to add any other information or anything, you can add it in there. You can also add in multiple things. So you might have a webinar and a live stream, or you might want to, you might have, for example, a webinar, and after, for a much smaller group, you might want to add a panel discussion where people can ask questions or something extra. So I'm just going to go ahead and add in another one there. Just going to use the same. Okay, so again, I can add in things. I'll just add that in there. And let's look at this. So I'm just going to leave that now while I set my tickets, and we're going to come back to this because you can restrict them by ticket as well, which I'll show you in a moment. So we'll pop onto the ticket section. We'll add in our tickets. So I'm going to have free tickets for the webinar. And just a little handy tip for tickets as well. If you do have tickets that have a lot of the similar settings, the on sale dates, things like that, by clicking those three dots, you can just select copy. It will copy over all of the dates and everything, and you can just fill out what's different. So let's say I want to have a panel discussion after my webinar, and I want a much smaller number of registrants for that. I can do that. And with the repeating events as well, one thing to point out is the ticket sales dates here. So you'll notice when you have a single event, you have your ticket sales start date and time and your ticket sales end date and time. So you'll notice this looks a little bit different. So you'll set it up that the ticket sales end, you can have it set to whatever number of hours before the event, starts, days or minutes, or else you can select before the event ends as well. And that will carry over to every occurrence then in your repeating event schedule. And then your advanced settings are all going to remain the same as they are with any other type of ticket. So I'm just going to change this to a paid ticket because it's something extra, and I'll click on save. So just to mention again, it's like a rubber stamp for the repeating events. So these ticket settings will go across each occurrence. and are the same. We'll be looking at workarounds in a minute of how we can, take off capacity on some dates, and also how to offer a cheaper price on some dates. But let's get back to our online event page now. So now I have my ticket set up, and let's say I have my webinar. That's free to anyone who registers for the webinar ticket. And then I have the panel discussion. If for whatever reason you want the panel, if you have a second one like this and you want to restrict it to a ticket type, so you don't want everyone with a free ticket just getting to this paid panel discussion, you can click on that. I don't know if you saw that little settings icon, and you can restrict access to, I'm going to say panel discussion here in this example, and click apply. So on the landing page, which we'll be looking at, your virtual venue page, they won't be able, anyone who's just gone for the free ticket for the webinar won't be able to access the panel discussion. Only people who've bought the ticket will be able to. And then you can decide whether you want it to be visible, so it's visible all the time, or whether you want it hidden until the event starts, or you can even set a custom schedule. If you go for hidden until the event starts or select a custom schedule, you can then also click this box, and that will notify attendees when this is shown. So for example, you might have your panel discussion, you don't have your link set up yet, so you might not want it on the virtual event page until you have that set up, in which case you can hide it until a certain date and time or the event starts. And it will notify them if you select that as soon as you make it visible. If we scroll further down then, you can also add additional details. So there might be some important details that your attendees need before the event. If you're adding a link to something else, if you want to add an image or add more text, you can add it here and it will appear on the event page. Also, if you want like an on-demand video that's available all the time, even after the event ends, you can add a video link in there also that they can access. Once you've set all this page up, if you click on preview, you're going to see this virtual event page then. This is what your attendees are going to see. So if you scroll down, you'll see that my webinar is here. It says when it's going to start, and when they want to join the webinar, they'll just simply click on the link in their confirmation email, and they'll be able to access this just by clicking on it to join. And then below, the same goes for the panel discussion. If I click on that, anyone who's bought the panel discussion ticket will be able to access this. With online events, they will have to sign in with the email address they use to register for the event. So this is just so that they don't share it and that anyone can join them. So for example, here, I have the webinar portion is free, but I have a paid ticket for the panel discussion. So I don't want just, if they share the link with anyone, you don't want just anyone being able to access it if they haven't registered. So that's just an extra precaution that they do need to sign in with the email address that they used to purchase their ticket. Okay, so if we scroll further down now, I'm going to just publish this next so we can look at the next bit. Okay, let's look at some of those workarounds for the repeating events that I talked about earlier. So if you scroll down and let's say you have a matinee price that's a little bit cheaper for some dates, then you'll want to add a public discount to get around that. So how you'll do that is once you've published your event, you'll see at the top here, it says all occurrences. If you need to go into a specific occurrence, you'll select it from the top here. And when it's all occurrences, these settings that you set here are the same across all of those dates or times you've set up. So let's just pop into, let's say, let's go down to one of them here. So let's just go into this 431 here that I set a bit different. So I'll just leave it load for a second. So if I go onto that date, you'll see the date at the top here. And I scroll down and go to marketing. I can then go to multi-event promo codes. You'll pop on add new code, this event only because I just want it to be a cheaper ticket for this instance. I'll go to public discounts. I'm going to give it to all tickets on the current event. One is free, but it'll take it off of the panel discussion one, for example. I can type in whatever I want the offer name to be. So if I go matinee and I want to give it, we'll say €2 discount, unlimited uses, I can then also decide the start and end date. I leave it as is because I want it to be active all the time. Click on continue and click on save and finish. So let's look at what that looks like from the attendee side now. So this is a great tool, whatever type of event you're running. If you look at that view button at the top right, it will show you exactly what your customers are seeing. So what your attendees are seeing. It's a great way to, even if you're writing out your event description or you want to test the purchase flow for your attendees, even the order form, how long it takes to fill out and everything. It's a great way just to see what their experience is of registration. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that view button. Sorry, just clicked off there again. Okay, so because I've selected a specific date here, it's just going to show a tickets button because it's that specific occurrence, and it's going to have a select a different date. So I've gone onto that specific one so we can look at the public discount for the matinee. So if I click on tickets, I'll see here that it has, for the paid ticket, it has the full price display, but it also has the matinee, the public discount here, so that attendees can select that cheaper price just for this date. So that's, we'll notice here, is for Sunday, the 13th of December at 4:30. And if I go down and select a different date, so if I select the 10th for the later time, and I just select on tickets, then you'll see here it doesn't apply here. So that's one way to get around the, if you do have a cheaper price on some occurrences. And another one to bear in mind as well is if you want to sell out a specific occurrence and not sell all the tickets. So for example, if I look at the first one here, the 10th of December, I have 130 tickets available. But I want to sell out, we'll say 30 of those and only have 100 available. So what I'll do is at the box here in the top left, I'll click into that date and time. I'll go ahead and scroll down to manage attendees and add attendees. And I'm going to go in here and just put quantity 30 because I want to take 30 off of the quantity. I'll just mark it as complimentary. You're going to want to choose complimentary here because if you choose any of the other options, it will add the face value of the ticket to your sales figure. So always choose complimentary when using this workaround. So once I've done that, I'll click on continue. And I'll just wait for it to load. I would suggest just putting in something so you know that this is what it was for in your reporting. So I'll put whole tickets. You can put in a real address if you like, but I would tend to suggest putting in a dummy address, email address because it's not a real order. And then because I have it set to each attendee, I'll fill in all the other ones. So let me just. I'm just going to go back and do less than 30 so I don't have to fill that out. If you don't want to fill all that, because it's set to each attendee in the order form, that's why it's asking for the information for everyone. So I'll just go ahead and click on 3, just so I just need to fill 3 out. And you'll see there that you can copy it from the other information. I'll uncheck send a confirmation email because I don't need one sent, particularly if you use a real email address, and I'll click on register. That will create an order to take those tickets out of your inventory for that date. So then if I look, you can see here, I have the date selected here at the top as well. So if I go to dashboard, it will go to the dashboard of that specific date. And where I can see 3 tickets have sold, so that takes off that amount of tickets. So that's just one workaround if you need a different capacity for certain dates. Again, with these workarounds, as I mentioned, these are to be used kind of sparingly. So if you find that you have to do a lot of this, then it probably is a better idea to have separate events. So once you've done that, you'll see that you have that there. You can also view from any of the event dashboards what your number of tickets are on any of the other ones. I just want to call out here with this as well. This is very important here. So you'll notice that if I set it to all occurrences, and I click on this view button, it's going to have this select a date option. If I have, like I did earlier when we were looking at the public discount for the matinee, if I choose a specific date here, then it's just going to say tickets here, and then below that, pick another date like you saw earlier. So this is what they're going to see. So if you're sharing a link for the event, you're always going to want to make sure that you have it set to all occurrences up here. And when you scroll to the end of the page, then you have your event URL here, and that's the one you'll share. The one below that is because I've set it to an online event, and this is a link to that virtual venue page that we looked at earlier. So just make sure that when you are selecting the event URL to share for a repeating event, make sure it says all occurrences in here, and that's the one you'll share. And that will then bring up the selected date when they click on it. So let's take a look at what it looks like for your attendees. So if I click on select a date here, it'll bring up a window, and I can just scroll through them at my ease if I'm not sure what date I want. Or if I have a date in mind, I can also click here and filter by date. So once I've done that, I can click on tickets, and that will bring up again, I chose this one that has the matinee ticket. That will bring up the ticket page, and they can go ahead and register for the event then. Another thing you'll notice is when you have all occurrences up here, these are the settings. So anything that's rubber stamped and the same across all of them will appear here. So your basic information, your details will be the same, your tickets will be the same, and also your order options and order confirmations. Your order form, your order confirmation will be the same. But you'll notice here a few options that you're used to seeing will be missing when you have all occurrences selected at the top. For example, the manage attendees section only has orders and emails to attendees. So that's if you're looking at, let's say you're searching for orders across all of the occurrences, or you want to email all the attendees, then that's what you would select here when you've all occurrences set at the top. And also your reporting and things like that as well won't be here. So if you want to find information from a specific date, so let's just pop into this first date here again. I'll click on that. That will again take me to an event dashboard that is just specific to that particular date. However, you still will be able to see a snapshot of the other dates here. And if I scroll down, I'll notice my event reports are there then. So that's reports for this specific event, this specific occurrence, sorry. And then you'll notice all my options are back here again for manage attendees. So let's say, for example, in the case that you do cancel one of the occurrences or you do reschedule them, and we mentioned earlier that attendees don't get notified, you will want to email those attendees to let them know. So in that case, you'll select the specific date that you're rescheduling at the top. You'll go down to manage attendees, and that's where you'll click emails to attendees, because that will only email attendees in that occurrence and not throughout the whole schedule that you've built out. Also, just a thing to note with, as we're in emails to attendees, When you do have an online event, you will notice there's a few extra reminder emails here. So it's just more frequent reminders that it's starting in 2 hours, if it's a few days out, how many days out it is. So they'll get 3 emails usually before, because I've set the date so close. They don't have, there's not a third one here. You can edit these if you wish, or you can even delete them if you prefer to send your own. So that's important to point out as well. So that's our scheduling and what we're going to see. And then if you're looking to do refunds or anything like that as well, you'll just go into the orders and refund as normal. So you'll just pop in here. If I just go into the order here, and let's say I want to cancel this as it's a free order. If it's a paid order, you'll see your refund option here, like you normally would. Then you can just go ahead and do that from here like you normally would. Just to call out here with free orders, you do notice you have 2 options with free orders. So you can cancel the order or delete the order. The difference between the two is if you cancel a free order, the attendees will get an email letting them know that their ticket has been cancelled. If you delete an order, it will delete the order, but it doesn't send a notification for attendees. So that's just something to bear in mind as well when you're doing refunds, how to access them and how to do that. It's exactly the same. So that is the that's how to refund. So we've taken a look at how to set up our online events and the scheduler. We've taken a look at how to set up the repeating events scheduler and the online events with the online event page and adding your links, and just a few different things there about how to send the link and everything. If you find that the repeating events tool isn't meeting your needs and you are having to use the workaround a lot, what you can do instead is set up single events, and then you can use your organizer profile to link them together. So your organizer profile, if it's just a single event, let's just go on to this as an example. Your organizer profile on any of your events can be found on the dashboard. If you scroll to the very end, you'll see the organizer URL here. If you click on it, this will show all of your live and past events. Now it's not showing the event I have there because my event is set to private currently. So it will show all your live public events here in one place, and that will tie together single events that you've had to create separately. So you can customize that a little bit more by clicking on the Head and Shoulders icon at the top right and going down to Organizer Profile. And you can even select several different profiles as well. You might have some events sitting under one profile and other events sitting under another one. And just a cool tip as well, just in general for all events, if you do want to customize the URL for either your event, your organizer URL, or your event one, you can click on the change button for the organizer URL or the edit button for the event URL, and you can just add in a customized one there. So that's a good tip as well if you want a niche looking URL. Now, so I know that was a lot of information to cover, so thanks for sticking with us through the presentation. I'm going to take a few minutes to cover off some of the pre-submitted questions. So thanks so much for sending them in. We had some really great questions, and we're going to get through as many of them as we can now. So let's just look at the first one. So can attendees see each other's information when attending? We have a need for confidentiality and we would want to verify the attendee but allow them to be anonymous to others. Please advise. So that's a great question. So from the Eventbrite side of things, attendees would not be able to see the information of any other attendee at any point. And just as I previously mentioned, they have to enter in the email address that they used to register to be able to access it. Now, with regards to the webinars part of it or the live stream, there's lots of different platforms that we looked at that you can use that are free and paid to host. And you would need to check with your chosen platform if they have settings that would let you hide or anonymize attendees who attend. They all set up slightly different. So I would advise whatever platform you choose to host the webinar, check with them what their settings are so that that information can't be seen if you don't need it to be seen, if you don't want it to be seen. Next one. How can I repeat, copy an event, a 4-session course, which is not run weekly, monthly, but rather repeats more randomly? There doesn't seem to be an option to do this. Okay, so I think we looked at this in the demo. So just to recap, while there are options that you can set up a daily, weekly, or monthly events, you can also add once as the instance to add occurrences for those that don't fall into patterns. So you can just add each occurrence separately. Same goes if you're setting up time slots, you can just add each time slot that you want to put in, but you can just add them once if they don't follow any of those patterns. And how can attendees get their money back? So we covered this as well. So you can refund paid orders just like you would any other order in any type of event, or you can cancel or delete free orders like you would with any event by searching the order, clicking on the top actions box, and selecting refund or cancel. How do I move from free to charging? So I think we looked at this as well. So if your event has free tickets and you want to start charging, you can just go into the ticket settings of that ticket and at the top select paid. So for example, let me just jump back in here again. If I just go to all occurrences here, so I can access my tickets. And I just go to the ticket section here. You can see I have this free ticket. I can just pop into the settings, switch this to paid, enter in the price, and then click on save. And that will change it to a paid ticket then. How much does it cost to use Eventbrite's webinar system? So that's another great question. So on the Eventbrite side, there's no extra cost attached to, so when you choose that online event in the location section, there's no extra cost attached to that. If you have a paid event, you can find the fees on our help center. So they're all listed there. If you have a free event on Eventbrite, there's no Eventbrite fees. So from the Eventbrite side, there's no extra cost for having an online event. So just as I mentioned, you won't actually be hosting the video portion of your online event from Eventbrite. So we'll be simply how you'd sell the tickets and gate access to the webinar or live stream. And as we looked, you can pick a wide range of platforms to host. So take a look at that slide again when I send on the recording if you need to. Some of them are free, really easy to use. Some of them have more cost attached to them. So it's good to kind of weigh up, do you need those extra features that the paid ones offer or not? And then it will depend on what platform you're using, what those fees for using those services are. And the next one, length of time as I get zoomed out by 90 minutes. So I think this might be Zoom you're talking about. So with the Zoom, I noticed that my own personal Zoom account, even I have a basic account and it does limit me to have 90 minutes. And I only have the meetings function. So if you do want to have the webinar option as well as meetings on your Zoom account, and you want to have more time, you might need to just upgrade your package with Zoom to have those available to you. Let's look at the next one. I want my registrants to access our webinars in a seamless way with one-click access. Not every registrant has or wants to sign up to Eventbrite prior to accessing webinars marketed through Eventbrite. I'm losing lots of registrants when they come to access our webinars. They click on the link in the confirmation email and go to the webinar and then confronted with having to enter their Eventbrite password or having to sign up to Eventbrite at this point. Okay, so this means they are either late for the webinar call or off altogether as the process is too complicated. Okay, so that's another great question. So let's just break this down a bit. So with any type of event, not just online events, when attendees register on Eventbrite, if they don't already have an Eventbrite account, it will create one for them. And if they do have an Eventbrite account, it will prompt them to sign in. This is so they have all their tickets available. They can just go into their Eventbrite account. They can access their tickets straight from there. They can, if you allow for refunds, they can request refunds straight from there. It's just easy access to their tickets. With online events specifically, I think it is essential that you do have some gateway so that not everyone can share the links and anyone, even if they didn't register, can access your online event. So for that reason, when they register and they click on the link in their Eventbrite email, you might have found for this webinar, they'll get access to the virtual event page. They will have to enter in their password there, but that's so that only registered attendees can have access to the event. Especially when you do have a paid ticket, or if you do have a capacity, like for example, we use Zoom for our webinars, and there is a cap on how many you can have in a Zoom with certain packages. So just to make sure that with free tickets, that people who aren't even registered don't go and just have access to it, but also for communication and things like that, that you just have, and for your reports as well. So for example, if you're running recurring events and they're online events, and you're kind of trying to see what are the best days to run them, or, you know, because everybody is doing a lot of online stuff at the moment. So it is important to kind of look at your reporting, decide, okay, I've run this on a Wednesday at this time. I don't, you know, it doesn't seem to be picking up. Maybe I'll try it at a different time. Or, you know, you might say, okay, I've noticed that if I have it, you know, after lunch as opposed to before lunch, I seem to get more registrants. So you'll want to, that information as well, you don't want that skewed by people being able to just, you know, give the link to somebody else and they can join even if they're not registered. So that's important as well. And also particularly for the paid tickets, you don't want them to be able to just give that link to everybody, and somebody who hasn't even paid has been able to access it. And then as well as that, the added thing of, if you reach the cap with people who have paid for the tickets and people who have, you know, just got the link from someone else, then you don't want that happening either. So it is, you know, it is important to have some sort of gateway so that only people who should have access to your webinars and events do have access. Sorry, that was probably a long-winded answer. I do tend to talk a bit. Yeah, so that's kind of would be a good answer to that. A few pointers I would give, even just from running webinars and things myself, is it's good to even, you know, in your confirmation email, say you can ask, you know, please come 10 minutes before the event. The event will, you know, it will start 10 minutes before. Like I would always start my webinar and I have my title page up 10 minutes before it starts. So it does give people time to log in beforehand. And then also at the start of your webinar, just give it a few minutes and say, you know, I can see people are still logging in. I'll just give it another couple of minutes. I always do, even when the event actually starts, give an extra couple of minutes for people to log in and do that. Also, I find it's good if you get a lot of questions about how to join and the link and everything, you can just direct them to that landing page in the conference, you know, just let them know there's a landing page. If you click on it, then it will start. And even, you know, you can even add the URL in the confirmation email. Just to note with that though, you can't hyperlink it, but you can add the URL as well as an extra layer if you want them to be able to just have a direct link as well, and they can just copy and paste it into their browser and have it ready to go. So you can try all these different things and see how you go, just to make it a little bit easier. So the next one, does Eventbrite allow for on-demand webinar where there does not have to be a specific event start and time? Registration can be ongoing. So you can add video like we looked at, and registered attendees can access this on the online event page for every So when you're building an event, you do always have to enter in a start and end time. So, you know, you could put a start time that's a couple of months out from the end time, for example, just to keep it open, and you could start, you know, you could keep updating that if you wanted to. So you do have to input a start and end date, but you can actually hide them from the event page as well. So let me just show you how to do that. So if you pop into your basic information and you scroll down to the date and time, you'll see here a box display end time. So you can just uncheck that, click on save, and it won't show, so the end time of your event won't be displayed to your attendees. So that's one way that you can do it. If you are doing that though, I would recommend that you do make sure that you explain it in your event description, put it in your confirmation email, you know, that it is an on-demand video rather than a live stream or webinar, just so they know what to expect and that they can go in and they can access it at any time. If you do have an event and it does have an end date in the past and you have added a video, they can still access that even after the event ends. If they go into the confirmation email, they can still access that virtual event page even after an event has ended. So they can still access the video afterwards that way as well. So I hope that answers your question. And then I think we'll probably fit one more in. I think we've kind of covered this a bit as well. So how to best integrate with Zoom in a way that ticket holders easily understand where the Zoom link is. They do sometimes struggle to find the link and then send a flurry of emails when the event is starting. So again, when we have an online event page set up, you do have those extra reminder emails. So hopefully that will go some way towards, you know, it'll remind them a few days before the event, a few hours before the event, so that you shouldn't be getting emails right before the event. And also giving a good explanation. So, you know, in your confirmation, even go and click on the link, you know, you access the event page, then just click on the image, and that will help you join. And it just shows how many hours it is until the webinar starts as well on that virtual event page. So that's a good thing to do. And also, like I said, if you do get that a lot, I would recommend adding the link into the confirmation email so that they can, you know, they can copy it, they can open it in a window, and they have the actual link as well. So that's another option you can do. But, you know, if you give instructions, if you're finding you're getting that a lot, it is quite easy to access it from the virtual event page. So I would just maybe just add those little things in there so they know straight off what they'll need to do and they're not looking at it right before the event. So thanks again for all those great questions. We're almost at time. So again, I do appreciate your attention today. We did cover a lot, so I hope you found it useful. I'm going to send out, as I said, some resources, so keep an eye in your inboxes for those in the next couple of days. I'm also going to include a great webinar we did recently. If you want to delve more specifically into online events, it just talks about how to prepare for online events, how to write your script, things to consider with, you know, platforms you're using, and also, you know, kind of a checklist of what to run through before an event. So for example, things like, you saw earbuds, for example. I've had an occasion where I, you know, thought they were charged. I hadn't charged them fully, and you know, they were gone then when I started the webinar. So you learn from these things, how to do a run through, and also how to best promote your online event. I'm also going to include links to our Help Centre articles on how to set up your repeating event schedule as well. So you have all of those to hand. And we do have a few different webinars which are useful to look through if you do want to look through those. Also, as mentioned at the start, included in that follow-up email will be a link to our feedback form. It's very short. I would really love your feedback because I am trying to make these as useful as I can so that they're valuable to you. So please do, if you do have a couple of minutes, do take the time to fill that out. We're constantly trying to improve these and, you know, come up with ones that are relevant and useful to people. And just to mention as well, our next webinar is coming up the 14th of January, and it's about safely navigating the return to live events. So if you haven't already registered for that, and it's something that would be of interest to you, you can find it on Eventbrite. Thanks so much, and I hope you all have a great day. Thanks for joining. Bye.